Welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. My name is Andy Zaremba, or at Andy Zaremba on Instagram, the only social media platform I'm really active on for my personal brand, that is, not including Float House and Vancouver Reel.
Brand Andy.
Brand Andy. I actually had that hashtag for a while. But it was kind of fun, but I don't know. It's not on there anymore. I got rid of it. Just at Andy
It's always
Zaremba,
on there.
you know? Right across Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Really easy to find. And, as usual, behind the helm today is my brother Mike.
Greetings, everybody. How's it going? Pleasure to be with you, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, today we have another installment of the TEDx Stanley Park series. But before we get into that, as usual, we are recording out of 70 West Cordova Street here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, out of our business Float House. And if you have no idea what Float House is, visit the website floathouse.ca and you can learn everything you want to learn about flotation therapy. Or if you want a really quick synopsis or just an overall overview of what floating is, you can go to YouTube and type in "what is floating," and a video will pop up, which is 7 minutes long, and will tell you all of the benefits and what flotation therapy actually is. And if you'd like to give it a try, go to floathouse.ca, use the promo code VancouverReel, and that will get you a 20% discount on a single float.
Awesome. And we're going to give a quick shout out to the community that Andy actually started called Mindful Mass, which is a quarterly event that we try to organize in public spaces to do mass meditation meetups. And so we'll have like a group of people that we plan it all online, and then we kind of do like a flash mob of meditation, simply about 20 minutes. I think for the Christmas one, we did 20 minutes, and then we had a cool like band play afterwards. And
so it's kind of like
tea coming out and
like a zombie flash mob, or a dance flash mob, except not, because we just sit there and meditate quietly.
It's a consciousness flash mob. It's
That's
a consciousness bomb.
We're dropping a consciousness bomb. We're normalizing meditation and mindfulness in the city.
Yeah.
Because this is a hotbed for that kind of thing.
Totally. People
Vancouver
love.
it's such a progressive city. There's so much of that kind of stuff going on: mindfulness and personal development and floating and yoga and so many other things.
I mean, every city has its challenges for sure, but the fact that Vancouver's in a place that businesses like Float House and other meditation businesses can actually exist just shows you how. Yeah, I mean, 100 years ago, that these things wouldn't
be the case. 20 years ago,
20 years ago, yeah, that's
people
right.
wouldn't be doing this.
Exactly.
No. So come out to the Mindful Mass events. You can link up with us on Mindful Mass Vancouver Meditation Flash Mob. That's the Facebook group page, or mindfulmass.org.
Mailing list.
Yep. And lastly, we should give, we should give a shout out to the Vancouver Reel community, headed up by Candace White and Sean, currently away in Bali, creating amazing programs for all of you to participate in
accelerate
one day,
your
hopefully.
life. Yeah.
But the Vancouver Reel community is just a way to bring faces to the names and the voices that you hear every week. And if you want to come out in person, we typically hold monthly events. You can link up with us on the Vancouver Reel community Facebook page, or under the events tab under vancouverreel.tv.
Cool.
And fourthly,
finally,
we're going to talk about my favorite supplement in the world, on the planet Earth, like hands down for me, is Brain Evolve. Like, it has been my savior. Like, it's basically a nootropic formula. It's actually, the main purpose of it is to treat concussions, correct?
Well,
to
that
help
is
treat concussions.
That was kind of like the spawning idea of it, but I think it's a general, like, the different claims he can make that he's allowed to make, which is Matthew Bennett from Bennett's Choice, who's in Vancouver, a good friend of mine, and he's allowed to say that it can heal concussions up to 3 times faster. He can actually say those numbers.
Is it through the FDA?
I don't know if it's through the FDA. I don't know what regulatory body, but NSF, yes.
Right.
And then he's allowed to say it can help prevent neurodegenerative diseases. And he's allowed to say one other thing that I can't remember. But
either way, it's
probably
all
like
good.
Memory or something like that.
Yeah. It's working really well for you, obviously.
Totally not.
No, but honestly, I take this every single night, and it is the best thing, because It's a little bit of melatonin in there, which helps you fall asleep. But
Yes,
then,
very
as
small
Matt
amount.
explained it to me, it actually creates this triggering effect of a cascade of chemical releases in your brain, which helps you drift right off. So
Yes.
it's not just the melatonin knocking you out. It's like there's more to it than that.
Oh, okay.
I can't explain it better. But if you want to learn more about Brain Evolve, you can Google Brain Evolve. And
Yeah,
you'll find out.
BennettsChoice.com.
BennettsChoice.com. And it's an amazing product. It helps me get amazing night's sleep,
Yeah.
night in and night out. And it's supposed to be really good for your brain. So if you want to help your brain out, get some Brain Evolve. And you can pick it up at your local neighborhood float house.
That's right.
At least in Vancouver,
Yeah,
anyways.
kits and gas, then we got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
Enough of that. Enough of that stuff.
today, this is the 30th installment of the TEDx Stanley
It feels
Park.
like it. We've had
not
quite a
30th.
few. It's not
We've
that
had
many.
a lot of TEDx Stanley Park speakers. I don't think how many speakers are there? Do you know?
There's 13.
13.
Okay.
So it's definitely not the 30th. I think.
Probably 8th, though-ish.
Yeah, probably our 8th interview. And we have Camille Mehta. I said that
Hi.
correctly?
Yes.
And you have a website called CamilleMehta.com. It's CamilleMehta.com if you'd like to go visit. And you are going to be delivering a talk at TEDx Stanley Park on March 3rd. And it's going to be on maternal mental illness, which is a pretty hot topic. Mental illness is big, but that's even more niche. It's maternal mental illness. So first of all, Camille, welcome to Vancouver Real.
Thank you.
Well, why don't we start off by just diving into maybe the name of your talk, why you chose it, and what it's all about.
So my talk is called It Takes a Community. And it's about, as you said, maternal mental health, but particularly postpartum depression. And the reason why I wanted to give this talk was because I actually became quite ill with depression with each of my pregnancies, but I didn't know it until after, until I was actually expecting my third. And when my second was a baby, it was quite severe. And I consider myself to be a well-educated person, somebody who's, up there with a lot of the information that happens around birth and like pregnancy and raising kids. And this just hit me like a bus. Like I had no idea what was going on. And I'm not unusual in that.
Right.
Like a lot of women and men too, actually, they get postpartum depression either during their pregnancy or in the first year after, because it can actually start anytime in the first year after a pregnancy. And it comes on. They don't know what's going on. They think they're like a horrible person. They become filled with shame. They don't want to say anything. And this cycle just keeps going. They get worse and worse and worse. And I was shocked when, in researching this talk, I found out that actually the leading cause of death in new mothers is suicide.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy.
And I have, I don't have them with me, but I am planning to link them on my site. Links to the studies that show this. And they're current studies, they're statistically sound, they're published in like peer-reviewed journals.
So it's like legit research. showing this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And nobody knows about it. It's
Well, it's probably been around for a very long time, I'm guessing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But it's very hidden away.
Yeah.
And
So what do you think brings it on? Is it a combination of like the biological, like hormonal chemical changes that happen potentially after having a child, or is it more the lifestyle and circumstances and the changes that's required when you have a kid and you're dedicating so much of your time and energy to taking care of this screaming baby that's never stopping and all it wants to do is just get your attention?
I think that it's a combination of things. They can't really pinpoint any one thing that's going to say, oh yeah, you are going to get postpartum depression. there's like a hormonal thing happening, but it's also like a lifestyle thing.
Right.
You know, all of a sudden you're not sleeping, you're detached from your community. Like if you have a career, well, you take time off work, and suddenly those connections are basically gone. You have to make new connections. It's not always easy. Sometimes pregnancies are really difficult. Sometimes births are traumatic, and people wind up with post-traumatic stress disorder just from the birth experience.
Right.
You know, sometimes you might have an ill child. Maybe you have a colicky baby.
Right. It sounds
it's all
like
sorts of stuff.
It just sounds like the perfect storm for depression, really.
That's
like a
exactly
traumatic
it.
event, potentially becoming more isolated, hormonal changes, lack of sleep, a complete shift in your lifestyle.
Yeah, your self-care
all
goes
of
out the
that
window.
is just like it's like the perfect storm of
It is.
of creating some sort of scenario like that. So so why is it so important to you to talk about it as part of your message?
I hope that my hope is that in doing this talk, if I can only help one person to feel less isolated and alone and more able to like carry on and to seek help, then I feel like I would have made a contribution.
Right.
I just, we had a very rough learning curve in our family. It took literally years, and I just want to make that journey a little bit easier for other people who might be going through it right now.
Yeah. And people tell you, right, when you're about to have a child, like how hard it's going to be and how much, or maybe they don't either because they don't want to scare you. But it's just
a lot of it don't.
Like, I mean, I like I was sharing, I'm 4 months in now, and so I'm pretty kind of fresh in it, right? And even with we've had tremendous support, 2 grandmothers who are just all over us, helping so much, family as well, flexibility with my work. And all these things, like, and just, we have so much support, even with and being both mentally pretty stable people, pretty grounded, emotionally stable, like relatively healthy, mature. It's still super challenging. And I can just imagine if any of those pillars were a little weak or wobbly or just not there at all, how much, how much harder it would be, and it's funny, like until you're in it and you feel it, you don't really know, how challenging it truly is, because it just completely changes everything. And it's like you really have to do it. There's not really a choice. You kind of just got to put yourself on
You're
pause.
kind of in there now.
Yeah, you put yourself on pause, and you have to take care of this little child now, It's so dramatic. It's such a major life shift.
Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice I've heard on that, which I got from Joe Rogan actually, is to let it change you.
Right.
Like, don't resist the change that comes with a child. Like, if you're in your resistance to all the things you have to do and the lack of sleep and not
dad
going
bod
with the flow and all that good stuff, the dad bod and
rough.
And the fatigue, and then like you get people, you got sick a couple times because your immune system is compromised, and so many things. But like, just if you resist that and like in a state of like non-acceptance,
and you're just gonna suffer.
You're gonna suffer way more. Like that's just let it change you, let it change your life, because it's going to win. Like I mean, that situation as is going to win for sure. Yeah.
One of the things that is really hard for new parents to learn, and like as you said, there's this little life that needs you so desperately, and you want to give and give and give, is that caring for yourself first is an act of service. That is an act of love, because when you are at your best, you can give your best. Totally. When you're totally run down and you're none of your clothes fit and you've been eating garbage for like months and you're not sleeping at all.
Do you have a camera in my house or something right now? Like,
yeah, in like every single home, because they're all the same. And you haven't exercised or anything like that. You can't give your best, because that little child is gonna they don't really care how you feel at that point because they're a baby. They don't care how anybody feels. They just need.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're going to need you in the middle of the night. And if you haven't fed yourself, if you will,
or
all day long,
gone to bed by 10 o'clock if you can, you know?
exactly,
Like,
then you're not going to have very much to give. You're going to be at your wit's end.
yeah, and it
So-
adds up quick. Like, remember, we had a point probably around week 3 where, you know, you're kind of not trying to be, you don't want to be a burden on anybody, and, like, you know, you don't want to put anyone out. And then it just hit us, like, it was just like, like, the help's here. Let's invite it in and, like, receive it and allow it. So even if you have all this support, it's funny how it took us to, like, this kind of moment of, like, shoot, like, this is silly. Like, there's no point in getting all stressed ourselves and, like, making it harder on ourselves. Like, the help is right here. So
And
let
it's
it come
not
in.
selfish to do that.
Right.
It's an act of love to
Right.
care for yourself and to
Right.
get that help and to
Support.
accept it when it's
Right.
offered.
And I think on the TEDx Stanley Park website, just in the little synopsis of your talk there, I think you said it takes a village. Is that right?
I think I
Or
did.
somewhere in there, anyways.
Yeah.
It takes a village.
takes a village, a community
Right.
to.
So how important do you think it, like we've touched on it a little bit already, but like how important is it to have that support around you? And maybe if you don't have it, like what can you do?
I think it's absolutely critical, to be perfectly honest, to have that support. And I mean, not everybody has family close by. I'm quite lucky in that my mom
good.
actually lives like within walking distance of me, which is amazing. And whenever she leaves town, I like panic and go like, oh my God, my mom's gonna be gone for a month.
Yeah.
But I think it's critical. So if it's not family, then it's really important to connect with other parents, to, you know, to reach out to your friends, you know, whoever you have close by to you, and make those connections. Try and make life a little bit easier for you. Often people can come to some kind of an arrangement, for example, where maybe if you're at the store, you call up and say, hey, can I pick you up any like milk or eggs from the grocery store while I'm here? And then you do an e-transfer.
Right.
I've done that with friends and it's amazing. Just reach out, let people know how you're actually doing, and find a way that you can help each other.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about the shock factor of having a child before, and like how you don't really know what it feels like until you're in it. But let's say somebody knows a child's coming, and let's say it's going to be a relatively normal birth and without any crazy complications. What are some things that people can do to make that transition from non-parent to parent a little bit easier?
I would say that the things that will give you the most bang for your buck, in my experience, is for both parents. I know this might sound super superficial, but before your baby's born, go do the things like go to your dentist, get your hair cut, get your nails done if you know that makes you happy. Like, buy new pajamas because you're going to spend like 80% of your time in them for the next 2 months.
Right.
So that when you do wake up in the middle of the night and you look at yourself in the mirror, you're not like, oh dear God, it's like a swamp monster or something.
Right. So take care of all that.
Take
before
all
it
of that
comes.
ahead of time.
Yeah.
Get a whole pile of food in your freezer so that when you need to pull out dinner, especially if you have older kids, you just pull it out and stick it in the oven.
Right.
And it helps if you can order food online from your grocery store. So set that up ahead of time.
Yeah, we were just looking at exploring that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you use that?
I've done that. I've done that a bunch. It involves meal planning, which sometimes I fall back on. But
Right.
you just go onto the Save on Food website,
Yes,
or
yes, Save On.
Superstore does it too. You just have to drive out, and then they actually bring it out and put it in the back of your car for
Wow.
you.
So you just kind of drive there.
Yeah, you just drive
That's
in.
huge.
Pretty sweet.
Probably
Yeah.
a little less
And it's-
expensive than ordering it, like having it delivered.
A little bit, less. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not actually so much the delivery fee. It's just that Superstores tend to have
But yeah, there's lower prices in
Yeah, it's
general.
lower
Right.
prices
Yeah.
there if you have
Um,
one close by.
There's also like this is a little bit pricier for sure, but there are like food preparation and delivery services within the city as well. Like there's one called Eat Your Cake.
Yes.
And it's like healthy prepped meals, and they'll bring you like a 3-day supply at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and all you have to do is heat it up.
I have friends that do that. I have friends who've actually recently had a baby, and I think they ordered from Fresh Prep.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really happy with it. It's a little bit more expensive, but you know what? Even if you just do it like 3 days a week,
Yeah.
For the first month,
Just for the first
Yeah.
month. That's what we had.
Totally.
Actually, one of my partner's friends, that was her gift to her, was like
Oh,
a
that's
month's
really
worth
nice.
of, or like, I don't know how long, but a lot, like all these meals. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it just saved us. So you're eating well, actually. They're very nutritious.
That makes such a big difference.
And they're done. They're ready to go, you know? So it's just,
That's-
good gift idea.
that is like such a good gift idea. I sometimes getting a diaper service is a good one too, but that one is fantastic. When I had my first kid, I don't think there was anything like that around because
Right.
I'd never seen it. It seems like it's cropped up in the last
3 years-ish.
Yeah, 3-ish years. And I do know a bunch of new parents that use it and they love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that would be a good time to sort of splurge on things like that.
Of
You know,
course.
the more
yeah.
like bringing support around you. You know, you could even go further and like maybe for a couple months hire a cleaning service. Right?
That was my next
So it's
next
like
one.
hire a
Definitely.
cleaning service. You know, you could probably get someone who can come in and like, you know, do cooking, cleaning,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe your laundry. You know, spend the money on it for a little while just to help you through that period. But how much would that
So I guess-
help? Like if you could budget for that beforehand.
I think that is a phenomenal idea. You know, you just don't. One of the things that people don't really quite realize that when you have a new kid is how much time nursing takes, and that you can't actually
Oh
do
my
anything
God.
else. Like you're just sort of stuck in your
Yes.
chair nursing this baby, and if you have difficulty nursing, it becomes that much harder. You're
Yeah.
pumping, it takes longer.
Well,
It's-
for us, like sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and he's gotten better now, my son. But he'd just be kind of like only when he was like sleeping at night he would take the breast directly, but during the day he was a little more fussy with it. So she'd have to go and pump, and then I or her would have to feed afterwards. So like when he actually just takes it directly from the breast, it saves so much time, you know, and it's better for him and all these other things, right? But it's just like when we had to do that extra 2 steps and just the time just goes away, your day just melts away.
all you're doing is breastfeeding or feeding
Yeah.
or formula feeding.
So crazy.
It takes up so much time, and like little babies, they get hungry so quickly.
They do.
You can't believe
Every
it.
90 minutes, 2 hours, you're feeding.
So you don't have time to do stuff like clean. Like you
Yeah.
just may as well either resign to the fact that your house is going to be so scary you won't want to have anybody you don't really know come over, or save yourself the trouble, be less isolated, hire a cleaner a couple times a week.
Yeah,
Life will
totally.
be much happier.
No, when I was my situation was a little bit different from that, but online chess became my savior. I was just playing online chess, like cuddling for hours, just like playing chess. I'm like, okay, here we go, and I got pretty good at chess after a while. It was just
Oh,
like-
yeah.
yeah.
So-
So that was my thing though. I was just like playing chess.
So let's talk back about like the postpartum depression, and like, so what are some signs that people could see, you know, in their partner or in their loved one or family member or their friend, that would be indicative that maybe there's something going on, and they could, you know, at least open up a conversation about it, and then maybe how to open up that conversation. So signs, and then how to approach it if you see those signs.
I think the first thing to be aware of is that nobody is immune. So I would not wait for signs before
Okay.
opening up a conversation. Postpartum depression is one of those universal illnesses that affects people regardless of their like education, their financial security, their their race, their and there's no defining characteristic.
Right.
So everybody is potentially can come down with postpartum depression. So don't wait for signs to have that kind of conversation and talk about mental health in your family and with your friends. But things to be aware of are if maybe someone becomes withdrawn, they don't make, you know, I want to say play dates, but it's kind of not really the right word between adults, you know. You might make plans and they cancel, or they don't want to make plans with you.
So extra flaky.
Yeah, if
Which
they're
can be
acting,
tricky to watch in
if they're
Vancouver
really
because everyone's a little bit flaky
I
here.
know, it's true.
We call that the BC bail.
But
Never
if
heard
they're
that
being
before.
a little bit more hardcore on the BC bail,
Gotcha.
that's kind of, I would say, a little bit of a
Red
flag.
flag. All right.
The other thing is like check out their appearance. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, when people aren't feeling their best, or even that great, you know, maybe you're letting go of like washing your hair or even changing your clothes.
Yeah.
You know,
or even
maybe
just
you're
listening
wearing
to their voice when we're on the phone or the
Mhm.
language they're using when you're texting or something. Like, just, just be very observant perhaps of, what, maybe how they've shifted or something like that, right?
Now, let's talk about somebody who maybe is unfortunate enough to fall into postpartum depression. What can they do, or how can they be helped if that happens to them?
If you think that you or someone you care about or you know might be experiencing postpartum depression, the number one thing that can help is to start that conversation and to talk about it. Because what I noticed in my experience was that you might have all these symptoms, but the thing that really makes it feel just so awful, you're not sure if you can go on, is that you start to feel like a monster. You feel like you're the only one that might be experiencing this, especially at a time of your life when you're supposed to be so happy. You know, like babies are like supposed to be the best thing ever. And when you don't feel like you're like it is the best thing ever, then you feel like you somehow have failed as a human being. So bashing through that barrier of isolation is completely critical. And then it's important to see a doctor because it's very, very treatable. It's very common. And there's lots of different kinds of treatments available, like mindfulness is a big one. Some people require medication. Some people do like talk therapy or groups or what's the one, the cognitive behavioral... I can't
CBT.
remember. CBT,
Yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy. So like basically like, psychotherapy, like with a counselor or a psychologist or something, right?
And go early. Like, don't wait till it's bad, because the wait time between a referral and actually seeing a psychiatrist at Women's Hospital is like 5 months.
Crazy.
Holy
It
cow.
is so bad. So if
Unreal.
it's unbelievable. So don't wait.
Interesting.
To try and get a referral if you feel like that might be an issue.
Right. Yeah. And then let's say there's a scenario where perhaps the mother is maybe a little like stubborn or not stubborn or like
Maybe unwilling to get help.
Not acknowledging it or something like that. What are maybe some things, I guess one thing that came to my head is like, maybe reiterating how you kind of framing things like it's okay to take care of yourself and being selfish and is actually an act of love, and just kind of delivering that message, eh? Like, I'm trying to think like, how do you kind of how do you penetrate into somebody that's maybe trying to put up that brave shield of like, no, I got this, da 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 da, when you can see clearly like, no, they're actually struggling. Do you have any advice for that? Were you like that at all when you were going through your process?
I think I was. I didn't even tell my husband until we were expecting our third baby. And I had never told him any of the things that I was thinking, any of the things that I was going through. I honestly thought that if he knew what I was feeling and what I was thinking, he would leave me. Like, he wouldn't love me anymore. And I mean, we've been together for 17 years. But that, like, that's the kind of way your mind goes.
Sure.
It's irrational.
Well, you get this like the shadow side of yourself coming out, and like you kind of mentioned, like you might think some pretty horrible things.
Oh, it's a terrible
and you're just
things.
like, how am I even thinking that? Right? Like, I'll be very transparent. There was like a moment where, because they have a super little tiny soft squishy head, so I was like,
man, be careful what you say online.
I could literally like squish this child's head.
Oh, totally.
So you have this thought, and
Squish the child's head.
but it's just like, that's how dark it gets, and it's like it's weird, but it's like, whoa, at least can you watch it, and also don't be shameful about it. Don't be guilty. Like, don't be shamed by a dark thought.
No,
because
actually,
they're
those
quite
things have a
normal,
name.
Right? What's their name?
It's that kind of thinking like that, where these sort of dark thoughts come up and they pop into your head.
Yeah.
It's called intrusive thoughts.
Okay.
It's very common with depression. It's very common with anxiety. And it's also very common with another aspect of maternal mental illness that you almost never hear about, which is like postpartum OCD.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
And yeah, it's called intrusive thinking. And it's the kind of thing where you might think you're walking down the stairs and carrying your baby, and you might think, I could just throw them down the stairs. Or
what would that
crazy
what would
things.
that look like? You know?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
just weird
Those flash
stuff.
thoughts
Yeah.
that go into your mind and they are insanely dark. It's called intrusive
Yeah.
thinking, and it's very, very common. And
Right.
it doesn't mean you're a psycho.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and I realized that too. But it's just like,
Is that because of the overwhelming frustration some people
maybe
feel?
just exhaustion? Like,
Yeah,
you know?
I'm not really sure. I think human beings have very dynamic imaginations, and
Yeah.
I think it's just part of the human experience that we are able to think of possibly doing lots of different things. Some are very wonderful and others are really scary.
Right.
And it can be very terrifying for people when they have those thoughts
Yeah.
pop into their mind when they least expect it, and they think, oh my God, like, am I a psycho? Like, am I going to do this? Am I a horrible person?
Right.
Right. No.
But it's not. It's actually, it's
So
very
acknowledging
normal.
that that's
Yeah.
it comes
common.
up for
It's
people, it
common.
happens, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah.
If it's bothering you though a lot, like if you're noticing
Right.
that it's happening a lot,
Yeah.
that's a sign that you might be experiencing postpartum depression or anxiety or OCD, and please go and seek help.
Right.
Because like treatment is available for stuff like that as well if it's
Yeah.
overwhelming.
Well, I mean, that's something that like Andy and I, we've had many conversations the past year about just in general, because we're very much into personal development and
Mm-hmm.
you know, doing the work on yourself and just trying to like learn about who you are and self-actualization, if you will, and like that
Mm-hmm.
whole element of the shadow, you know, is such an important element to look at, and how you can be like, you know, and every human being has the capacity for evil as well as good, and that, you know, we do probably act on these elements of evil, if you want to coin them that
Oh,
way,
yeah.
regularly in different ways, and so it's like it's but if you're not, if you completely suppress that or say no, I never do that, you're probably not being honest with yourself.
Don't turn away from the shadow.
Right.
It's actually, I actually have come to feel like the shadow, if we'll call it that, is kind of a friend. And because it's there regardless, it's part of your personality, just like the light.
Right.
And that I think that there's something there to learn from that, that part of
Sure.
our
And maybe in some
psyche.
instances of your life, the shadow is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's needed, and instead of not having any form of relationship with it, you can have an integration and you know.
Well,
use
that's
it
what Carl
when you
Jung
need
would
to.
always used to say. Via Jordan Peterson would say that once you integrate your shadow, you become a much more complete human being, as opposed to just repressing it and pushing it aside. And in fact, Carl Jung said that the first step towards enlightenment is to get to know and integrate your shadow, actually. So it's like, but a lot of people think it's like all these high flying thoughts of like, oh, I'm going to transcend and be mindful and all this stuff. But a lot of times it's figuring out, the darker side of you, realizing that part exists, and then deciding consciously that you're not going to go there, and taking steps
Exactly.
to move away from that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And one of the things I do want to share for your listeners is that this completely took me by surprise, was that oftentimes depression can manifest as rage rather than sadness. So
Interesting.
if you or your spouse is acting like a crazy angry person, maybe not necessarily crying all day long, but just super mad all the
Right.
time, that could be a sign of postpartum depression.
So if
As
they're
well.
really irritable, edgy.
Yeah, just super mad. I actually used to,
anger. Yeah.
in sort of the, like one of the worst periods, I used to wake up my poor husband, who is a jewel of a human being, at 6 a.m. to fight with him.
Wow.
It was awful.
That was his welcome to the day.
Yeah.
Listen up, buddy.
You're still asleep.
So I'm
This
guessing
is everything I'm mad about.
It's not good to be like, start saying, "Hey, you're crazy. You're being crazy." I don't think it's good to start the accusing and blaming either, right? So let's say somebody is going through that. How do you deal with that? How does one partner become more understanding and deal with that?
I really like what you were bringing up again, Mike, about it can be hard to try and get someone to get help. I think it's good to have that conversation. But the way you said, just to encourage them to look after themselves can be a effective roundabout way to sort of maybe bypass some of those really sticky feelings about this, because there's a lot of stigma still about mental health, especially in motherhood. I mean, mothers are supposed to be saints, right?
Right.
We're all human beings here. Fathers too. I'm including fathers in this because fathers are also,
so parents.
Parents in general.
Yep.
But, often you can get around that by being like, how about, I'm going to take the kids. Why don't you go for a walk? Or, go off and do some stuff on your own, get some exercise. Hey, I brought home this good food. Like maybe you order the fresh prep or something like that and get it in there.
And I know from my situation, like the times where I've stayed home with our son and my partner goes out with her girls and just has like a nice dinner or something like that. It makes her feel like normal again. Like she just appreciated the crap out of it so much. And it was a nice night for me too. It was just me and my son just to kind of have a little, like just one-on-one time, which, is kind of, I think a little bit more rare for dads, is just to have like an extended one-on-one period. And then she just got to just really just take her time. Like, come back whenever you want. When your breasts start leaking and you got to pump, come on back, because that happens. It just starts leaking out.
You know what I found really interesting?
It's so true, right?
Yeah,
It's true.
Like
The baby's calling.
Yeah. When I was going back, kind of integrating back into normal life, I would say going to like restaurants or going and just having a beer socially becomes so much sweeter. It's just like, because it's so much, it's so rare compared to what you used to have before. Before it was such a normal thing to do. And when you have a child and like after a while, at first I feel kind of guilty. I'm like, oh, I'm just here by myself having a beer. Like this is this. I don't know. I feel guilty about this. And now it's like I savor that like hour and a half of like going out for dinner. Just like, wow, this is so peaceful.
And I can imagine, some people who don't have children, will be like, oh, they kind of, you've heard this stuff before, but it is really true. And I think that's why it's really important for your talk and your message to get out there on the bigger stage like this, because it is really challenging. It's really, really challenging. And I can imagine, there's cases all the time you hear of mothers committing suicide and like a double homicide and a suicide homicide, just horrible things that it's a problem. You know what I mean? So it's really important.
And I do feel, and this is the basic message of my talk, that when we as a community are aware of this issue and we reach into new parents, it saves them some of the difficulty of reaching out, because that can be quite hard.
Right.
So, if we're conscious about this as a societal problem that we can help deal with, then we can alleviate a lot of the burden of it. I mean, yes, you need to see a doctor for things like medication and that kind of treatment, and we can't make postpartum depression completely go away, but we can keep it from being a catastrophic problem where women are taking their lives, taking their babies' lives with them. Like, we can keep these tragedies from happening when we act cohesively as a community, as a society.
Yep. Amen. Amen to that. No, for sure. And I think that's the part where I've appreciated the fact that I have, healthy relationships with my parents and my family, and so does my partner. And that community element is just so critical. And that's why, I think, and maybe you may want to comment on this. Like, did you say like some women in general might have like a romanticized view of what motherhood could be like for that first child, especially, and like how like they get romanticized by it, right?
I'll encapsulate this with an example of what happened to me. I have this card line, and it's called the Mother Load, and they're kind of like a little bit darkly humorous cards.
Okay.
With
Like greeting
images.
cards and stuff, and like.
Yeah. They started off as jokes that I would draw and snap a photo of and then text to other friends.
Okay.
And then they wanted them as cards, so another card line.
Nice.
But I tried to get these things in stores, thinking like there's a high demand, like I sell them really well personally. I'm like, there's a market for this. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
And so I tried to get them into stores, and I approached so many stores about these things, and everybody was like, oh, these are great, we love them, but it's not appropriate for our store because when you're having a baby, especially your first baby, or
It's all
your
rainbows and lollipops.
Exactly. It's little tiny peas in the pods and cute booties and pink ribbons and
Baby showers.
you know, it's all that kind of stuff. It's not like a mom with crazy hair and the husband or dad's sleeping in the other room and the baby's laying on the bed crying because they've been crying for 3 hours nonstop.
See, that's so weird,
You know?
right? Because all of
They don't
that
want
sort
it.
of contributes to the whole shock factor of having a parent.
Absolutely.
You know, we should start a store called A Dose of Reality and be like, this is what parenting's really like.
Yeah.
Okay. You need sleeping pills. Okay. You need food. All right. You got to get your friends on speed dial. Like,
yeah, totally.
Yeah, like and have all the dark humor. Be like, yeah, if you think about squeezing your baby's head a little bit, it's okay. You're normal.
Yeah, it's all good. It'll pop like a cherry. No,
I mean, that's a little different from a
I'll
stork
provide the
delivering a
greeting
baby in
cards.
a nice like blue or pink. Fabric.
And you think like, oh, like you hear about people with say colicky babies and you go, oh my God, that's like, that would be the worst thing ever. But most babies are kind of colicky at a certain period of time.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah, they'll go through their stages.
The period of crying.
Yeah. I had a friend once refer to his child as a screaming potato. I'm like, yeah.
That sounds apt.
Yeah, that's kind of what they are for a little while anyways.
Yeah, he's like,
They
once
move
they
around, though.
got through the screaming potato phase, it got a lot better.
Yeah.
I like how you did the accent too.
That's bold as are.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge gulf between expectation and reality.
Totally.
And you don't want to like crush expectation completely because otherwise, why would you have kids? I mean, I adore my kids. They're like the best. And they're super cute, but they're also a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
And,
well, they're not necessarily going to make you happier.
No. And in a lot of ways, I can't believe I'm going to say this on air, but in a lot of ways, actually having kids doesn't make you happier. Mm-hmm. I said to a friend of mine once, she doesn't have kids, that having children doesn't make your heart feel full. It makes your heart feel deep.
So, yeah, that's bang on. Good.
Yeah.
It's like, well, there's this whole idea around how happiness is sort of silly to pursue anyways, right? Mm-hmm. All emotions are very fleeting, including happiness. And I've heard recently that it's much more beneficial and important to shoot for meaning in your life, meaning and responsibility as opposed to just happiness. So people say, oh, you should just be happy. Well, you're going to be happy until something really bad happens or something really bad happens to someone you care about. Mm-hmm. And then that happiness is gone. So it's like...
And then what are you going to do?
It's way more beneficial to be grounded in meaning and purpose than happiness. Because happiness, again, as we all know, life's not going to end necessarily so happy for everybody.
Well, kids definitely give you meaning and purpose.
That's 100% true.
Sometimes not happiness, sometimes great happiness, but
it's just, it's fleeting. Yeah, it's like any other emotion, really. But
yeah, and it's also, I think, something that can easily be a distraction from, say, a relationship that needs work as well. It's like people then start to focus completely on the child and don't pay attention to the partnership that they have, and it's so important to like still kind of be responsible for that and care and nurture that relationship and grow and dive into the darker sides of that as well, to do that growth there, because there's a lot of discomfort that any intimate relationship, whether it's your partner or your child, can bring up. It's like they're the ultimate mirrors. Like you said, like, it's not going to make you happier. It's going to reveal how you're truly feeling right away.
Absolutely. I was a few years ago, I was part of a focus group that was held by I believe it was the city of Surrey. They were wanting to redevelop their printed materials about postpartum depression that would be distributed in hospitals. So they had some focus groups. So I was part of that. And there was one couple that was also part of the group, and they had addiction issues. And the father said something, and I'll never forget it. I couldn't agree more. If you have any issues that, you feel like you need to work on yourself, do it before you have kids, because having kids will not make it better. It will just amplify it.
Right.
It'll make it worse. So,
Yeah.
if you have something from your past that, crops up now and then, see a therapist, deal with it, talk it out, like explore that, because it is going to crop up again when you have kids. They mirror you, as you said, and our deep emotions come out in that
They're
state.
revealers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
They're gonna reveal to you.
Children are not nature's entheogen. So,
That's right. Yeah.
anyways,
Cool.
on that note, is there anything that you'd like to get out there today?
That you haven't.
That I haven't already.
Come to TEDx Stanley Park.
Yes, come to TEDx Stanley Park. See all these amazing talks. I'm so honored to be amongst such a great, distinguished group of speakers.
Yeah.
Really.
It's going to be a great day. Yeah, I'm really excited. And your website is Camille Mehta?
It's CamilleMehta.com.
.com.
And I'm an artist it's one of my professions is
Cool.
I'm an artist. So the website mostly showcases my artwork, although in the next few weeks I'm going to be getting some more informational stuff on there about maternal mental health issues, some links to some studies that I have used in my talk. And I'm also going to be hosting classes in the next year. I just don't have art classes. I just don't have a time set up for those yet. So
Very
they will
cool.
be coming up online.
Awesome. Yeah,
All
we'll get them
right.
up there because this content is evergreen. It'll be up there. So whenever someone is listening to this, if it's after the TEDx Stanley Park, whatever, jump on over to CamilleMehta.com. Did I say it right too?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Good job.
With no reading. And then and check it out and maybe have those classes going by then. So
Yeah, I'm hoping to
Very
get
cool.
them up and running in the next few months.
awesome. Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having
I
me.
look forward to seeing you on the big stage.
Yeah, good luck with
Thank
the talk.
you.
Should be fun. And that's March 3rd for everybody out there. TEDxStanleyPark.com, I believe, is the website, or just Google it. You'll find it. And yeah, so thanks for joining us today. A rating, review on iTunes or YouTube, or any engagement on social media when we launch this would be really appreciated. And
Go float.
Yeah, go for a float.
Buy some Brain Evolve.
Take care of yourself. Floating is like the ultimate self-care practice, or one of them, in my opinion. It's
Yeah,
unrivaled in
floating's
many
great.
ways. So definitely take that time out for yourself in the float tank.
If you need some energy, eat a grind bar.
Grind bars.
Do
are
some
good.
cryotherapy. Come out to a mindfulness meditation event and join the Vancouver Real community.
That's right.
That's pretty much sums it up.
And until next time,
To whatever is.
to whatever